Previously on Battlestar Galactica.
It's too late for me, but you can still get out.
Hello there, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brendan, aka Cliffjumper, and I had a really strong response to the probably excessively long Corrado owner review video I did the other day. And thank you for bearing with it. I know the audio was not good on that. I was having issues with my microphone, and thank you for watching it despite the poor audio quality. Audio quality matters to me. I work in audio professionally as a worship pastor dealing with live streaming. I really want to make sure the audio quality is awesome, and I know people will put up with crappy video quality if the audio is good, but not the other way around. So again, thank you for dealing with it. I had a few people reach out to me and ask if I could do kind of a walk around of my Corrado, because there were things that I talked about but I never actually showed in the video. So we're going to do just a little bit of that today, going on a quick drive. We'll walk through some of the, as Doug Demure would call it, quirks and features of this car. So it certainly has a lot of quirks and a lot of cool features for the time that are, some of them are still pretty timeless. Anyway, let's get to it. Hope you enjoy.
If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up. It's so choice.
All right, so let's talk about the VR6 Corrado, and I'm just going to do a walk around of my particular car. Again, it's not exactly reflective of every Corrado that's out there, just sort of my own personal taste. So let's start with the outside of the car. People have been asking about the bodywork and stuff, and this car looks great from about 10 feet away. You get up close and you start to realize, oh yeah, it's got chips and damage and all sorts of stuff because it's got 204,000 miles. It's been driven. So anyway, but there's some stuff here. All right, so this is an FK badgeless grill that we've got on there. I've got a Kamei grill spoiler, and these, for the American folks that aren't too familiar, these are the European E-Code headlights, or the VR6 variety. Down here we've got a spoiler that is the Rieger GTS spoiler. It is still possible to buy these brand new. I also have a set of the Euro Cullen side markers that are smoked. These are pretty rare, these, at this point in time. They were really cheap back in the day. I bought a couple sets of them, which is great because when I wrecked my other Corrado and drove it off a cliff, the Euro Cullen side markers went with it, but I still had a spare set, so that was good. These, of course, are a set of one-off HRE 535 wheels. As far as I am aware, there are only 2 sets in existence in this particular size and bolt pattern. They were commissioned at HRE in 1995 specifically for a VR6 Corrado. Not this one, it was actually my buddy's car, and they made these amazing wheels. They are crash tested and approved. I actually drove these off the cliff and they survived, and they're great, so approved. Side skirts. Let's talk about the side skirts. These are also a very rare piece. They were made by Tech Automobile Design back in the early 90s. They made a bunch of them, but they're basically modified Opel Calibra skirts, and you may notice this side is in a lot better shape than the other side. See, the carbon fiber is still in really good shape here. That's what my other one looked like. I see a crack here. It looks like they damaged that one. I had it to a local shop for smog. They stuck it on a lift. It looks like they put the lift points under the side skirts themselves instead of under the pinch weld points. And on the other side, it absolutely devastated them. I mean, just totally cracked it right there, through the gel coat, the clear coat, and then up here in the front, and also it cracked the underpinnings of it too. So it's really, really messed up. I'm not happy with that. And hopefully that shop will make it right. I've been talking with them for quite a while, and I don't want to out them because I'm hoping that they're going to do the right thing and figure out a way to make this right. But these are one of, as far as I've been able to ascertain, only a dozen sets that were ever made in the world. with the carbon fiber. 2 of them were on the G60 race cars that Tech Automobile Design had. One of them was on their VR6 with the turbine automat supercharger, and then the other 9 of them were gifted to the Race of Men, and they sold them to the general public. So after many years of looking, I finally found a set. These are starting to look like they've seen better days. They probably need to be sanded and re-clear coated, but we get these carbon fiber Corrado mirrors made by James at SpoonFedTuning. It was a custom job for me. I had another set of them back in the day that were custom made by a guy named Charles at, gosh, I think his business was called VW Sport. And those they died and they crashed down the cliff, so they're dead. But James was kind enough to make me a set. Again, 200,000 miles, they've seen better days, but interestingly enough, the Corrado mirrors are the same mirrors that McLaren decided to use on the F1. So if you ever see an F1, you'll notice it's got Corrado mirrors. Now, I got to a show, and the F1 drivers are looking at it going, wait, well, how come you have carbon fiber mirrors and I don't on my McLaren? Because it didn't come with carbon fiber, they were just plastic. So the other one looks like it's in fairly decent shape in comparison. Let's work our way back on the car. I've got the half-smoked, half-red taillights, and these are just simply overlays. You can get them from Blue Bat overlays. Yeah, I think that's my friend Andrew's company's called Blue Bat. It's Blue Bat something. I'll have to look it on social media. I'll tag him in the description. But they're just an overlay. It's a vinyl overlay. I was lazy, and you can tell if you look up real close here. I did not sand these down before I put on the overlays, and you can see the writing is popping through underneath. And probably a better way to do it would have been to sand these smooth, clear coat them, and then put on the overlays. But again, from 10 feet back, it doesn't look half bad, and this is a driver. This car sees the road. I'm not worried about show perfection anymore. The back here, we've got a carbon fiber rear plate. This was one that was made again by Charles at VW Sport, which I think, now that memory serves me, was later renamed Carbon Creations. James at SpoonFedTuning makes one that is much nicer. I highly recommend getting that one while it is still available. And then this is a carbon fiber license plate surround. And there you go. This is one of the extended wings from SpoonFedTuning, carbon fiber. Very happy with this design. And you'll notice it has an extra kick to it. It's extended by almost 2 inches longer than the factory spoiler. And underneath it's got a really nice curve to it that blends it in with the factory lines. Super nice piece. They're about $450, so they're not cheap. But real carbon fiber, vacuum infused, high quality. Turning my 10 engine back here, I got a Momo Corsa exhaust. It is a catback exhaust. Again, I think it's one of the only ones, if not the only one in the country. My friend's mom was the rep for Momo back in the 90s, and he had a Corrado. So he got his mom to import all these parts that they weren't selling here, and he never put it on his G60. I think it ended up on a shelf somewhere. Somehow it ended up still new in the box at Autotech, and I picked it up from one of their garage sales for pretty cheap. I think it was like $125 for the full exhaust or something like that. Really inexpensive, and very happy with it. I love the oval tip, how it fits the cutout shape here, and it is a dual exhaust inside through, so it's nice design. I do have my rear wiper. I know a lot of people delete it. All I did is the update to the Aero style wiper blade, which works pretty good. I did change my FUBA antenna to a carbon fiber style one. Since I don't really use my antenna, it does physically have the antenna in here. The FUBA base is inside, so it still has the amplifier, but it just runs a circuit board type antenna inside of the carbon fiber shark fin. I think it cleaned up the lines of the car much better than having the bee sting spoiler sticking up there in the air. And I am using the WeatherTech vents for the windows. it's mainly for summertime. I can crack the windows open a little bit and get some air ventilation through, which is super helpful with the black leather because that gets really hot. It averages 100 degrees here every day in the summertime, and this gets very, very warm. You also notice I have the Passat B4 sunroof, and it bolts right in. It fits really, really well. It's not perfect. You'll notice that up here it's about a 2 or 3 millimeter difference where it sticks up along the front edge, and it can make a little bit of wind noise. But I've also found that if you just tilt the back up 2 or 3 millimeters, just a couple of quick hits with the switch, this dips down flush and then the wind noise just goes away. So it's not a really horrible thing as a lot of people complain about and make it out to be a great big deal. Let's move around here to my engine bay. Okay, I know there are a few producers making these under hood foam things. These, I got in a group buy. As far as I know, they're still available on eBay. They're pretty cheap. They are the foam, but they have a sealer on one side of it so it won't start falling apart as it ages and turn into litter in your engine bay. I do have a battery maintainer on this. The engine bay is not really very modified. I do have the later model Passat B4 intake tube here instead of the corrugated original VR6 one, which tends to fall apart, and then a cold air intake as well. I did dyno this, and I've noticed that if you have 7 to 8 inches of straight tubing in front of your mass airflow sensor, it actually makes power. If you just have a filter open here in your engine bay, you lose power compared to the stock airbox. But the stock airbox has a flow straightener in it. But by adding this full tube down into the fender well, yeah, it does expose me to possible ingestion of water, which is a risk, so I won't drive it in the rain. But it has a really substantial pickup in power. So people argue about whether they make power or not. I've got the dyno sheets to prove it. It does. So there you go. These are from SpoonFedTuning as well. They don't do anything functional. They just look really pretty covering up your strut caps. Maybe there's a protection quality. I do have this old first generation Autotech stress bar. So before they started doing the sand casted bases, now they actually say Autotech. They've got a really nice aluminum base. This was the first generation one. And then here you'll also notice more carbon fiber work. This is all SpoonFedTuning. This was on my car that I drove off the cliff, so that's also been crash tested and approved. And let's see, it cracked right here, and it cracked in one tiny little other area. Oh yeah, right here. And that was all the damage it took from going off a cliff. This other part really cleans it up. This is the lower rain shield, windshield wiper cover cowl. Again, glossy carbon fiber. Looks awesome. I love it. And then this is just a cheap vinyl wrap that I did because why not? I'll probably redo that with some glossy carbon fiber at some point so it matches the other stuff and doesn't stick out like crazy. I'm also thinking about redoing some of these other pieces in the glossy carbon fiber. But I have some other big plans for this engine bay, which I'm not ready to reveal just yet, but is a period piece that I'll just say it'll mount right about here. And it won't give us a whole lot of power, but it's definitely going to increase the cool factor of the car. I just realized this is falling out of its little mount there. So yeah, these wires have places that they're supposed to go and hang out. Anyway, that's about all that's going on here. And yes, this does have the automatic transmission, just waiting for my O2M transmission. Eventually I will swap it to manual and have a 6-speed, and everything will be really, really nice. Just basically a warmed over VR6. Some people have asked about the power specs of stock. This motor on a dyno put down 151 horsepower, which is like nothing by today's standards. But back in the day, back in the early 90s, that was a considerable amount. It was rated at 178 horsepower in American spec. In UK spec, you could get a 190 horsepower 2.9 liter. When I had to freshen this up about 20,000 miles ago, I had a leaking head gasket, so we decided to just go to town. We replaced it with the Mark IV metal head gasket, which raises the compression ratio, and so it went from 10.5 to 1 to just about 11 to 1. Also had to mill the head. It's got a ported head with bigger intake valves. The intake manifold is the 2.9 liter intake manifold, and I've got the matching throttle body for the 2.9 liter, which is considerably bigger inner diameter. And then with the exhaust manifolds, I had them ported to match the head as well. So just a very mild port. We did Autotech cams. So they're street cams. They're not super wild, but when you get it combined with the right software and you increase the fueling, so this is a 4-bar fuel pressure regulator off of a different Audi, Volkswagen, I don't remember what it's from, but we also did the 36-pound injectors versus the stock 26-pound injectors. And again, you have to have software to make it all work right, but it works wonderfully. And between all the little tweaks that we have on this car, she dynoed 204 horsepower at the wheels on a dyno jet. Same dyno jet that we dynoed it at 151 originally, just to do the verification. So all the little things really add up. And again, 204 horsepower is not a whole lot by today's standards, but for a VR6, it's pretty healthy. Moving on to the interior, you can see I've got some more SpoonFedTuning goodness here. I've got their door sills, carbon fiber. I love them. They look great getting into the car. And you'll notice the Recaros with very, very deep bolsters in here. If you watched my R32 video, you know I'm a fan of deep bolsters, and these are deep. These are actually Recaro trophies out of a Mark II Jetta, which I had recovered in leather to match the rest of the leather interior here. And you'll also notice, just attention to detail, the sipes here, what do you call them, the seams, they don't quite match up from seat to seat. There's a little lack of attention to detail. Actually, this one is spot on for where it's supposed to be. That one is off by a little bit. So eventually I will be having these removed to put in the seat heater elements that go in here. I finally found the Recaro elements, and then I'll be able to take advantage of the fact that this is a cold weather package car, and it does have the wiring for the seat heaters. Another carbon fiber bit. This is a leftover from Charles at VW Sport, and these are just little decals. So if you go on eBay, they've got the 5D glossy carbon fiber overlays, and again, from like a few feet away, it looks pretty good. You get up close and you realize it's a decal, so it's, you know, whatever. But I have used it in a few places around the car. It would not be a complete Corrado review walk around if we didn't talk about one of the quirks and features, which is you can only roll down one window at once. And even if you hit the automatic feature, one will roll down and wait for the other. So it's just one of those funny little things. So I'm going to hit both buttons here. All right. So that one's going down, and now that one. They won't both go down at once. It's just one of those weird Corrado things. And of course, if you want the spoiler to go up and down, there is a special switch for that right here. So you can manually move the spoiler up and down. Volkswagen said in the manual that it's for cleaning and lubricating the spoiler, but we know what it was really about. The spoiler is just cool. Looking out the back window and seeing that thing deploy at speed. And of course, when you stop and you park, you want to show off the spoiler because it's cool. So that, yeah, that's just, it's a thing. It's a thing. We just acknowledge it and move on. But absolutely, there's so many weird little quirks about this car. The MFA trip computer in the dash, also worth mentioning. It was very ahead of its time. The earlier Volkswagens, starting in the like about 86, I think, had a trip computer that was digital display, which you could toggle through all the different things and functions. But with the Corrado, they decided to make it big so you could actually read it at a glance versus the itty bitty little lettering that was in the previous models, which is a nice feature. Of course, having a tilt steering wheel was a big deal back in the day, and then moving to the rotary knobs for the AC was a big step forward for Volkswagen. And this being a 93 facelift does have the lateral ventilation versus the vertical that came in the earlier. They also softened up a lot of stuff in the dash, just made it a little bit more organic looking, and in my opinion nicer. I always wanted a 93 plus. I could afford a 90 when I first started getting Corrados, so that's why I had those in the early G60s. And but you could legitimately make a G60 as fast, if not faster, than a VR6, but the VR6 was always nicer. And sorry G60 guys, it's a fact. The G60, it definitely has its quirks and its features as well. You know, the bonus feature of you never know when the supercharger is going to explode. That's a great feature. It's like pulling a pin on a grenade and driving every time you drive. Some people enjoy that. Honestly, it was thrilling in a weird, sick way. But I like turning the key and the car actually drives, and I don't have to worry about things exploding. Call me crazy. Other things, like they just changed the door handle slightly, they changed this design slightly, moved the switches from up here to down there where they make more sense because your hand actually falls on it when you're going to change things. And I don't want to neglect one of my favorite features too. I honestly thought this was so cool back in the 80s and 90s. The automatic seat belts. Oh yeah, that's 80s cool. Radwood cool right there, baby. And I know a lot of folks hate these things with the fire of a thousand suns, but I actually think they're kind of neat. And I've discovered as long as you keep them cleaned and lubricated, they work great and they don't give you issues. So if you have them, clean them, lubricate them, they'll last a while. Trust me. They will. They really will. But the European ones didn't come with those, and you could just get regular seatbelts. So that was a big draw for the folks that wanted the regular seatbelt experience. You can still order them. They're expensive, but you can get them. And that's all I have to say about that. This is actually a leather-wrapped door handle on some of the later models. Mine's a first year, half year. It's an early 93. So it was actually manufactured, well, we can look at manufacturing dates on my car here somewhere. Let's see, it was actually manufactured in August of 1992. So it's a very early 93 model year, and because of that there are some things like the actual leather, they changed that to plastic in later years. So I've got the leather everywhere. Very nice leather, love the leather. And then we got some other period correct stuff. Let me just move my seatbelt out of the way. The Neuspeed period correct Momo steering wheel. Yes, this actually is Momo. Momo made this for Neuspeed. So got the fake carbon fiber here. Do with that as you will, but it was sold by Neuspeed in that way. And then you may notice I have the European 160 mile an hour speedometer, which one of my friends was nice enough to program for me, so it actually works correctly with this car. Remote for my Valentine one. And you'll notice more of the carbon fiber trim. I do have real carbon fiber in the cluster itself, which is nice, and it kind of contrasts a little bit with the decal. Over here, some other folks were asking about this. This is a CD slot mounted phone holder. It's made by Kumis, and I've got one of the custom radio. It's a CSS, I think it's a 5910 BT is the model. It's a Bluetooth stereo that matches the look of the original fairly well. It has the same wiring, so it's plug and play. You don't have to do anything funky to it. Works great. And then you just mount your phone right here. I don't ever use the CD, so I don't care if I'm breaking the CD player or not. It's all MP3s on my phone. Oh yeah, cup holder. I've got a Vanagon cup holder here, which I've just done light modification to make sure it actually holds my coffee cup. My wife was just asking me today, I used to have a dual cup holder from a Passat, and unfortunately they have all gotten pretty brittle with age, and they're just no longer reliable. They fall apart and they break, especially inconvenient if you're in the middle of a corner and your drink goes flying. So I've gone to this Vanagon one, which seems to be holding up pretty well, even though I'm sure it's 25 or 30 years old. I also have replaced my center console cover for the sunroof. Now you'll notice this has both buttons, the original early button for the 90 through 92, and it's got the later button as well for the sunroof. Why is that? Well, that's because this is a leftover from my G60. You know, it's actual carbon fiber. I couldn't stand to just leave it, you know, in the wreck. It survived the trip down the cliff, so I migrated it forward, but it still has the button, which I might repurpose at some point in time to a garage door opener control. I think that would be pretty nifty, and I don't think that would be too hard. There's a lot of room in here, so I could probably put the garage door opener inside and use this as my open and close, but this is the actual sunroof control there. And then of course you may have noticed I have done the black headliner. That's we took out the headliner, used spray dye. I think RIT is the company, and you can see my headliner on the sunroof is coming off, so I'm gonna have to redo that. Unfortunately, that means removing everything. I have to take out the headliner in order to take out the sunroof in order to fix this panel, so it's not a high priority right now, and as long as it does retract all the way, I'm not going to worry about it too much. But the B4 sunroof, moonroof combo is great. I love having the glass, being able to just enjoy that. It's a nice touch. One of the other things that I added is the center sun visor. This came on a Passat. Now I know some of the late facelift model Corrados came with this, and that's awesome. Mine did not, so I grabbed it off a Passat, threw it in here, and you'll also notice that my A-pillar is kind of, you know, just barely hanging in there. One of my upcoming videos are going to be doing a do-it-yourself, how do you fix these things, because they break and they fall apart. You can see the vinyl is coming off on that one down there in the corner. I'll be redoing that, possibly with leather, but probably just stick with the original vinyl. And then some other people asked about this. Some other people asked about this. This dual pod gauge cluster is a leftover from my G60. Now this is an air fuel ratio meter. It does work. This is a boost gauge, which only shows vacuum right now because it's naturally aspirated, but as I implied earlier in this video, there is a period correct surprise yet to come, which may give this some meaning in life very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that. Other than that, anything else that I've done here, I can't remember. Oh yeah, hold on, worth showing off. SpoonFedTuning mats, of course I've got some dirt on them because I've been driving, but they did a really good job of reproducing these mats. I think you can still order these from SpoonFedTuning, and they definitely make the interior a lot fresher looking. And then in the back seat, ignore the pile of sun visors, I've got my little Recaro. These were made from the Recaro material in the Recaro trophies that I had recovered in leather. So just little seatbelt pads, which my kids enjoy when they sit back here occasionally. More and more they're asking me to drive the car, not ride in the back of the car. But yeah, I think that's just about every... Oh, let's visit the trunk. Let's visit the trunk. There's a couple things here. First of all, my mail is back here, so yeah, that's great. You can ignore that. But I've got a Bazooka powered subwoofer, and there's the original factory CD changer. And that subwoofer does a really good job. Now I've taken and replaced the speakers in here with some Infinity speakers. They're 3-way, if I recall. No, these are 2-way 4x6s. So those are just upgraded. The sub does a great job. I used to have 6x9s in one of my other Corrados, but I found that these upgraded 4x6s in conjunction with the Bazooka 6-inch sub, it was more than enough to really upgrade the stereo. Of course, Fire extinguisher, absolute necessity for any Corrado owner. Absolute necessity. And then I have this is actually the bag from a SpoonFedTuning car cover, but I've replaced the car cover. It died after about, I think it gave me a good 5 years, and then it got shredded in a windstorm. No fault of the manufacturer, it just wasn't able to stand up to like 70-mile-an-hour winds. So I've replaced it with a custom fit cover from Beverly Hills Motorworks. Highly recommend them. I've got them on, those covers on all my cars. No sponsorship or anything, I just like their stuff. And let's see, just going forward here, these are still the original speakers in the doors. They're fine. I mean, they're made by Nokia. They're not great, but they're okay. They're just one-way mid-range speakers. And then up in the dash, we've got upgraded plate speakers, which are just drop-ins from a later Mark III. So the Mark IIs that had these plate speakers, same sort of deal in the Jetta Carrot edition. They were just sort of these cheap paper cone speakers, but the later Mark IIIs have the same exact speaker size, and they actually have, there's a variety of them. There are some that have a mid-range with a independent tweeter, and then there are some that are a plate speaker with a titanium dome tweeter, and that's just the high end. That's what I've got in here. So it gives a fairly decent sound stage. I can't really play you anything because, well, YouTube and their copyright stuff would just take down my video, but it sounds great. If you ever want to check it out in person, you happen to be in San Diego, reach out and be happy to show you. But other than that, anyway, that's just a little quick walk around the car, some of the custom stuff I've done with it, and you know, as I mentioned before, I love it. Mechanically, I could speak to the suspension. Somebody was talking about what suspension are you running? I happen to have a suspension that is unfortunately no longer available. I bought it from Black Forest Industries. It's their Powerhouse coilovers. They sold them for a few years, but apparently they have recently stopped selling them, which is kind of a travesty because they're great. They're soft. Now, I understand, little birdie told me, I don't know if this is true, so maybe somebody from Black Forest can let me know or not, but I understood that they were made by H&R and just rebadged and sold as the Black Forest in-house brand. And with the way they ride, the ride quality is excellent. I have no trouble believing that. So quite possible that these are made by H&R, much in the same way that Eibach used to make springs for Neuspeed before they started making them in-house. So anyway, they're great. And then I've got I've got some actually R32 front calipers, but it's on the stock 11-inch brake discs, and I'm using some Brembo brake discs front and rear, and I think I've got a Mark IV caliper on the back. There's not really any performance increase, but they're aluminum, so they're lighter weight and just easier to deal with if you have to change pads. That's really the only reason to go to the Mark IV calipers, and if you do that, you have to change the line because it's a banjo bolt instead of a direct fitting. I think that's about it. I mean, I haven't done anything crazy with the car. Crazy is yet to come, even though the license plate is 5150 VR6. If you know what 5150 is, it's a police code for the criminally insane. It's also one of the best Van Halen albums. Sorry those who hate Van Hagar, but I love 5150. I think it's a lot of fun, and I do have a 5150 guitar. I'm a big Van Halen fan. Yeah, Van Halen, the original Van Halen, and then of course the second iteration of Van Halen. I'm not such a big fan of Gary Sharon's iteration. Sorry, Gary, but I don't think my opinion matters that much to you anyway. Hope you enjoyed, and certainly tune in again sometime soon. We will provide you some more car content. I'm probably going to be filming tomorrow at Cars and Coffee. Maybe we'll say hi to Doug Demure. Who knows? Make sure to like, subscribe. You know the whole drill. Thanks for supporting us, and we'll see you soon. God bless. Bye-bye. If you wouldn't mind checking out my Drive Tribe articles that I've written, head on over there. You can search for my name. I've written a few articles about various car experiences. I'd love for people to read my stuff. And of course, if you want to partner with me on Patreon and help sponsor me so that I can keep putting out great content, for many of the videos that we're doing, replacing parts, doing DIY projects, how to do stuff at home, I want to provide that material for you, and hopefully you find it fun and encouraging and inspiring, and at the very least mildly entertaining. But thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you, and I'm going to just leave you with a few more happy Wookiee noises as I accelerate out of here.